Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Holochain Ecosystem Session. It's the 19th of October, 2020. And today I have McBurney with me from bHive. G'day, Ian.
Yeah,
good, thank you. Nice to be talking to Australia this morning.
Yeah, we're going to see the sun coming up in the UK, just behind you too, as you
Oh,
speak.
we are. Let me actually shift position, and we can watch the sunrise at 7 a.m. here. So I think we might get the sun to rise by about 9.
Nice. Well, it's 10 past 5 of the afternoon here, so opposite ends of the day.
Yeah, exactly. So, Ian, just tell us a little bit about yourself, bHive, what it is, and how it works, and maybe where it came from.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I have a background in environmental engineering and environmental education, and I've spent the last 20 years working with communities, governments, schools, businesses around sustainability, ecological sustainability, and change practice. And over that time, we've seen an incredible number of people doing such wonderful work, but we've also seen approaching crises, and they're converging. And so about 5 years ago, I realised sustainability by itself wasn't enough. We need to look after the planet, but we need to look after people, and we need to look after the future of work. And we have all these different approaching crises from all different points. So I kind of started thinking, if we help businesses become ecologically sustainable, but they're still taking from people and taking from local place and using too much resources and creating profits for fewer and fewer billionaires, we've still got the same problem. So a few of us in Bendigo, where we're from, got together in a co-working hub and said, well, we actually need to change the nature of consumption, and we need to the answers to the climate and the biodiversity and the exponential growth in billionaires and homelessness and social isolation and depression and anxiety, and all of these things are coming from the same place, and they all need answers that are local. And we've been I don't know about you, David, but I've followed 24 global climate talks and watched every single one of them fail, because they're trying to solve a problem that requires every single one of us in every local place to change our values and change who we are. And we've had this story of sustainable development since the late 1980s, which is the economy should keep growing. We should just be a little bit green about it. And we can keep extracting resources, and we can keep destroying local economies and local places and destroying people's lives as long as we can make a profit. So we got together and said, well, we actually need to think about all of these issues together. It's they're all systematic. And so we sat down and said, well, what would it take to create an economy that is local, that is about access to stuff rather than ownership of stuff, that's about creating meaningful local work, that's about localising ownership, that is about global brilliant ideas that are open source, and that are put into practice locally. And what does that mean for the way we live our lives? What does that mean for the way we work? What does it mean for the way we work together as local communities? And so we came up with this idea of bHive, where it's a local place-based cooperative organisation that builds tech that can enable people to build their own locally owned economy. So, when you look at the energy system and the transport system and the food system and logistics, all of these things can be localised. And we've seen all these amazing tech visions of the future where, Elon Musk is the global god running a civilization in Mars. We've got flying cars. And, some of these ideas have a little bit of merit. Having a transport system that doesn't use fossil fuels is a great idea, and sharing access to transport is a great idea. But, the question we were kept asking is, well, what if the tech platform was actually owned by the local community, so the value stays locally, so that your data is owned locally, so that you're not being advertised at by nefarious organisations who are attempting to sway elections using psychological warfare techniques. So, we wanted to answer all these questions at once, and what we need to do is grow an economy from the local neighbourhood up, and this is something that we all have in common, and an economy that is based on belonging and relationships and local places. Local places that grow their own economy and then network with other local places and share ideas around the world with each other. And so we started building this idea of bHive, and we're about to launch our first platform, which is a bit exciting. It's called Villages, and it will link neighbours together to share stuff and skills, to build relationships, to create community across Bendigo, and from villages we can build up local cooperative enterprise. So car sharing is the first one we're looking at for Bendigo, because that there's a good market for that here. But in the end, we kind of had this vision. In Spain, there's a place called Mondragon, and Mondragon has a network of more than 200 cooperatives that run most of their local economy. And it's just brilliant, really brilliant. During the financial crisis, they did really well because instead of having to make a profit, they exist for the benefit of their members. So they looked after each other and they got through. So we had this vision of the cooperative governance, which is democratic and shared, one member, one vote, profit staying local, being shared. But we are also looking around for tech that could do this for us, that could enable local places to build their own organisations up, and then replicate that model in other places. And that's when we found Holochain. Must have been about 6 or 7 years ago that we started following Arthur on Twitter, and started saying, well, maybe we can have this. Maybe we can have this tech that we're looking for, and that would enable people to, own and control literally their own data, and could enable scale, from open source scale, but could enable local places to just develop tech, and then the next local place could add and improve to it, and they could use it as well. So we started to get very excited. So, there's a whole number of things that we're trying to do with bHive, and it's been a long haul the last few years, but we're nearly ready to launch and test villages in Bendigo. So pretty exciting.
Really exciting. I can't wait to see that. But I guess one of the things you've learned from once you discovered Holochain is patience. If you discovered Holochain if you started following art 6 or 7 years ago.
Yes, that's right. Well,
were you impatient those days?
I'm impatient. Climate change is approaching quite quickly, and the whole world is literally on fire since I started following Arthur on Twitter. The Greenland ice sheet's gone down, and we've lost a whole other set of species from planet Earth. But the ideas he was talking about then, it was pre-Holochain even. The ideas he was talking about were quite exciting, and we had this whole explosion of blockchain and what's blockchain and what does it mean, and decentralized tech that ends up kind of centralized, because you need centralized mining to take place, and you've got an ever expanding ledger that doesn't work on a phone, and there's a whole number of reasons why it's good, but there's a whole number of reasons why you sort of think, oh, it's not going to work. And then Holochain came along, and it can scale and expand endlessly. You literally own and control your own data. It means that people need to work together rather than having some miner somewhere else making a ledger work. You know, I've heard interviews from the founder of an organisation called 𝐿ETs, which is like an exchange of time network. And it started in the 70s and it was spreadsheet based. So, you know, I could swap an hour of time with someone else and that would get recorded in the spreadsheet, and, you know, someone might owe me an hour or I might owe someone else an hour. And what tended to happen is 2 or 3 people had the spreadsheet or the control of the spreadsheet. So if that person, I don't know, died or moved or had an argument with people, quite often the entire spreadsheet is just gone. And, you know, it's kind of trying to create something wonderful, but it's doing it in a centralized way. So we got really excited when Holochain came along, and yeah, I went up to Brisbane to one of the first you know, Holochain gatherings in Australia, and we had a whole weekend talking about the tech and how close it was, and I think that was about the time we started rewriting in a new language.
That was the intensive, wasn't it?
Yes.
It was early 2019.
Rewriting Rust.
March 2019, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that was right. That was. We just started writing Redux then, I think, and then RSM earlier this year. Yep, it's been quite a journey.
And you know, the thing that I brought back from that, you know, my background is not in tech. We have another director who is a great developer, and he has his head around the tech. But I went up to Brisbane, and when I came back, I sort of said to our board, look, I don't know whether they're quite ready. And whenever I've got an engineering degree, whenever they started going into the real back end of the tech, I was like, that is really, to make that simple is really complex. And you know, and there's a really simple idea, but there's a lot of really complex code to be put together. And I said, but the thing that really got to me over the weekend was there was probably 40 people that went up to that weekend, and the shared values were extraordinary, about you know, wanting to be socially and ecologically restorative. You know, it was just a really, really clear, really strong set of values that we completely share, and I found that really, really heartening. So I kind of came back to Bendigo and said, look, this is amazing. And they say they're close, but I've since heard that every developer in human history has said they're close, no matter where they are. And yeah, so we sort of said, well, you know, we can't sit here and wait, because, you know, there's 5 of us. We've spent 5 voluntary years building bHive, and because it's quite hard to raise capital when you're a non-distributing cooperative. Once we're going, all of the value will stay locally in Bendigo forever, and that's what we want. But it's been really hard to get going because you know, it doesn't matter how lovely and friendly and eco and social impact and whatever an investor is, they always just want to make money. So we've had this long, hard road of raising enough capital to get going, and so we couldn't wait for Holochain. So, you know, we're working with 𝐼𝐸, who have strong links to Holochain, and, you know, we built our front end for villages in React, and the goal is, you know, when you're ready, whenever you're ready, we can rewrite the back end, and you know, and it solves our next problem. You know, we can test our business model currently with a normal client server backend and make sure that people want to come on board and use it, and we can test it and develop it. But if we want to get to our next phase, which is allowing other local places to establish their own bHive cooperatives and set up their own you know, technology, we really need Holochain open source, scalable solution, because we really don't want to create a global behemoth like some of the other tech platforms are, because it's one of the problems we're trying to solve. So yeah, we still have our fingers crossed for when are you going to be finished, Dave?
It's close. It's close, Ian. Yeah. It's interesting you talk about the shared values. When you were about 10 minutes ago, when you described that moment where you guys came across Arthur tweeting and sort of said, like, you discovered Holochain. It's a common thing when I'm talking to people that there's a real like smile when that, when like your body language changed, face lit up. It's a blessing and a curse, I understand. There is something about that, like that group. I guess like the part of the point of the ecosystem sessions is to connect people who are around the world and can connect the broader world to the same kind of experience, that moment of finding Holochain, because I think it's not just these shared values, but it's also, well, actually, one of the values that I see is the belief, that deep-seated belief that the world can do better, tech can do better, not just with how it's built, but the communities that form around it.
Yeah.
So I really see that.
Well, we've been kind of saying that for a while, that we think the Holochain technology with local cooperative ownership is like a match made in heaven, because you can actually have local shared democratic governance of projects, and each local place can be different, depending on the people and the local strengths of that local place. But once you've built a certain tech on Holochain, it can be available to the other places when they get established. And and people, data sovereignty is a huge thing for people, and we're hearing it more and more, and that's another hugely powerful part of it for us, that people literally own and control their own data, and it's you just know it's not being sold, or you're not being advertised at to shape you as a future consumer. You're a human being and a neighbor, and that's what's really important to us. That's where the tech starts, and that's where it's able to go. And I was reading Janine Benyus's book Biomimicry again recently, and she talks about how a local economy or a local city should operate like a forest. So deeply rooted in place, sharing of local resources, sharing of information, because what they're finding out about forests is that's what's happening. You've got cooperation and collaboration happening between species across forests. The trees on the hill are collecting sunlight, and they're passing that energy through the mycorrhizal layer in the soil to the trees in the valley, and the trees in the valley are collecting water and passing it up the hill. And that's what we need from our local economies. We need this information and resource exchange going on locally, and the tech needs to enable that. In each local place, it needs to enable that to come up and thrive. And it's where we see real potential with Holochain, because I've heard Arthur speak about how he wants to create and kind of like an open container of social and human collaboration, and and that's what we want. And but we want it to be that global ideas, and then locally put into place, where you've got community and you've got people around you that you can collaborate with all the time. And so we're excited about it. Excited about it coming.
One thing popped up. You're saying that you guys have been working to volunteers for the last 5 years to get this off the ground. Like, what's so important about this to you guys, that makes you want to do that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's a number of things. You know, when you look at what's happening to the climate, you know, we need to cut our global emissions in half in the next decade and remove them completely by 2050. That's 10 and 30 years away. And, you know, that we've had, like I said, 24 failed global climate talks. All of the answers to climate change are local. You know, it's actually a local shared energy system. It's a local shared transport system. It's a local shared food system. You know, it's changing the nature of consumption. You know, that all of the answers to climate are local. We've been trying to solve them globally, but it's a horrible, horrible policy problem for global people, especially when fossil fuels are so powerful and we have an entire economy built around growth and consumption of fossil fuels. We need to focus on it locally. When you look at you know, global biodiversity loss, we've lost 70% of all wildlife from the planet since 1970, and you know, that's extraordinary. You know, we actually need clean air, water and soil to survive, and biodiversity is what gives us that clean air, water and soil. And you know, that's totally devastating, but once again, it needs to be solved locally. We need to change the nature of consumption. We need to restore the ecology in each local place, and we need to stop exploiting local places to get what we need. You know, we've got exponential growth in the number of billionaires and exponential growth in the number of people living in poverty. And that can be solved locally with local meaningful work, local spending that circulates rather than leaving town and never being seen again, and local ownership and local the value staying locally. So, you know, for me and for us, it's a combination of all these things. You know, we have epidemic levels of social isolation, loneliness, depression, anxiety, suicide. And these things are happening for the same reasons again. We don't have access to local meaningful work. You know, we don't have local spending. We don't have nature locally around us. We don't have community around us like we used to. So when you look at all those different things, they're obviously leading to fear, to, you know, nationalism, which is, you know, rearing its ugly head right around the world. You could even use the word fascism in certain places. And that's because there's no local work anymore. There's no local meaning anymore. There's no local connection anymore. There's no local community anymore. And, you know, we need to build those things from the ground up in each local place. So, you know, for me, there's the fear of collapse, obviously, on the one hand, but on the other hand, there's the excitement about what's possible. You know, we actually have the tools now to create a local economy that is good for people and good for the place. You know, and it's not 1950s ideas like communism and capitalism and socialism. It's actually post those ideas. It's better ideas that work for local places. And, you know, so, you know, the reason this is so important to us is because this is, we think this is one of, you know, many, many answers there are around the world that need to be tried. And, you know, I have 3 kids, and, you know, I have nieces and nephews, and, you know, you sort of think about the world that is going to come if people like us don't try everything we possibly can to create a world that fits here on Earth. I don't know whether you've ever been to Mars, David, but it's a shit place. It's like, it's really horrible. There's no air, there's no water, there's no soil. And, you know, this idea that we can expand off into the universe is totally batshit crazy. You know, we have this unbelievable planet here, and we're a social animal, and we need to be together. And, you know, it shouldn't be that hard to look after each other and to look after our place. You know, it just shouldn't be that hard. So for me, there's the fear, but there's also the excitement about what we can do. And you know, we're obviously just launching our first little piece of software. We've got big dreams and big ideas about where we want to go. but this is a first step for us. So, you know, that's what's important to me, creating a civilization that fits and that lasts here. And because at the moment we are not heading in a good direction. Yeah.
Got it. Thanks so much. Yeah, I mean, I have a little direct experience with this in that I spent several years in Alice Springs, and some of those years in remote Aboriginal communities. And one of the, it was really interesting because like traveling and living in communities, you hear all sorts of stories from all sorts of people. And for those of you who haven't been into remote Australia, it attracts some of the oddest characters, and it's also home to a whole number of Aboriginal populations with different languages and cultural backgrounds. And one of the strangest stories to me when I was sort of in my mid-20s was that there's a community called, I think it was Ernadella, in northern South Australia. And in the 70s, sort of like some hard like taskmaster had come, and pretty brutal, that he had got sort of set to work and got everyone to build houses. And so that there was shelter coming, there was work coming into the community. And then like Australian government policy changed over time, and now the houses are transported from Queensland, driven halfway across the country, all prefabricated. So firstly, no one's building their own shelter anymore. And secondly, when something goes wrong and you haven't built it without local materials, what happens? Well, you have to raise money and get someone on a truck to drive 3,000 kilometers across the country, bringing another $150,000, $200,000 worth of kit that's about to burn, melt, and be destroyed within the next 2-3 months. So, and then you'd see people like the local shop, which is the only place to spend the money. Government money would come in on a Thursday or get spent on the shop. Shopkeepers are there for 2 to 3 years trying to extract as much as possible before like buying a block of land on the coast. And all the products in the shop are all like multinational products. So government money's coming into a community and might be sort of semi-feeding people, and everything's just gone back out immediately into the hands of this a family and big companies. And you're like, well, why even bother? Why not just hand the money directly to those companies and to the people who want to buy their house on the coast?
That's right. That's right. You know, why don't we all just go to the shop and just buy stuff and just chuck it straight in the bin in the shop too? Yeah. You know, that's what, you know, it's like we buy stuff on the way to landfill.
Yeah.
And why don't we just throw it straight into landfill? Yeah. And you make an interesting. It's interesting bringing up Indigenous communities. I'm on Dja-dja-wurrung country here, and there's some brilliant local things going on in Bendigo with our local Indigenous community. And you know, we're really inspired by the way Aboriginal Australia has the longest lasting civilization that has ever existed on planet Earth. And it was about local place, and it wasn't about extraction or growth. It was about being sustainable socially and ecologically. And there was really, really sophisticated and intricate trade networks and education system and legal system and right across the country. And we're only really finding out in the last 5 or 10 years how amazing it was. I mean, most of the country was farmed. They use story and song to build the landscape into like a memory map. So it's quite extraordinary. And you know, they in many ways they for 60,000 years lived what we're trying to achieve. You know, a society that is about getting the best out of every person, and a society that is about looking after the place for the long term. And yeah, there's there's a lot to learn, and we've been doing a lot of reading and thinking about Indigenous governance systems in Australia and how we can integrate those into what we're doing with bHive. Because there's wonderful Indigenous knowledge all the way around the world about how to create local economies that look after people and place.
Yeah, beautiful. All right. Well, on that note, do you want to jump in and show us a little bit of what you've built?
Yeah, this is always a scary point. We're about to launch in Bendigo, and so we have some local champions on the platform who are doing some testing for us. So I'll see if I can share my screen, and it's always dangerous doing this, isn't it? Because as soon as I do this, it won't work. But let's see.
That's all right. Part of the ecosystem sessions is showing what doesn't work as well as what works. So that's all fine.
Yeah. So this is the first screen that people see when they come onto villages. So you you can type in your address and before you sign up and just see what happens. So everyone in the world's going to see my address now, David. I hope I don't have too many visitors. So when you type in your address, it puts you on a map. So it tells you how many, people are sharing things around you, and who's posting, and how many events are happening locally, and so you can just get a bit of a feel for it, for how it works, and then you get started and you set up an account. But I won't set up an account right now. I'll just log in. And I'll take you to this is my home screen on villages. So there's two different layers to the villages. One is my village, which I'm in control of. So I can set the distance that it will find people from my house. So I've got mine set to about I think it's to 1 kilometre at the moment, but if you're in a regional area, you can set it to 10, and if you're in the middle of a city, you can set it to 500 metres. So it finds people within that distance, and you can add those people to your village. So when I click on my village, you can see the local posts that people have got. So Gina's saying she's got sewing book patterns for babies and kids. There's like a news feed that goes down there, and in the sharing library you'll be able to create a post, and you'll be able to create events, and you'll be able to plan things together. So you can get your neighbours together, and you can say, okay, who's interested in setting up street tree planting, or who's interested in getting a little shared library happening in the street for books, and you can discuss those things as a local community. What are we going to do about our local park? You can set up local events, you can give things away, you can announce things, and then you've got your sharing library. So the idea there is that you can get access to other people's stuff and their skills. So you can list, if you're an expert at fruit tree pruning, you can chuck that in as a skill, and other people can approach you about that. Or it could be IT, could be, well, you never know, David, it could be Holochain intensives that you want to discuss. Let's get together on a Sunday and have a discussion about the comparison between blockchain and Holochain, and stuff as well. So things that you would be happy to share with your neighbours. So there's succulents there, and a jigsaw, and there's a holiday house. There's you can list all sorts of things. Even
like an alternative list management strategy for the Collingwood Football Club you could share with your neighbours.
You could definitely have a conversation about that, and I'll show you another place where it's even more relevant to have a conversation about sport or whatever in a moment. So you can manage the people in your village. You can add. There's at the moment there's no new people that live within 1 kilometre of me who've signed up, so there's no one to add. But you can invite your friends from across town. If you don't like people anymore, or you're having an argument or whatever, you can remove people from your village, which is totally fine. You know, we all have neighbours that we get along with, and neighbours we've never seen, and whatever. And we want to help people find more of their neighbours, but not everyone gets along with everyone, and that's fine. You can also, down here, you can add your friends across town. So, you know, you've got that one. I've got that 1 kilometre limit at the moment, but I can also add friends that I already have from across Bendigo, because I already have relationships with those people, and I'd be happy to drive to share things with those people. So that's how your village works. But then the other aspect of it is communities. So these operate across Bendigo. So your village has that geographical, small geographical community nature to it. These ones are for communities of interest or community organisations that operate right across Bendigo. So anyone can join these. And you have, you know, administrators or whatever for communities. So we've set one up at the moment. We've got champions just signing up who are helping us with the platform. But you can see there, you can post, you can create events, you can plan things together. Communities have the same functionality as a village, except they don't have the sharing library, and they operate at the Bendigo scale. So you could definitely set up a sport group here and have conversations about list management. You could get the local toy library could have a page across town, the tool library, the library of things, the repair cafe, the farmers market, the sustainability group. You know, they can all have communities here that exist geographically right across the town, and they can get their, you know, build an audience and get people involved in their local activities. So, you know, villages is you know, it's the first thing we're building. You can also direct message people that are in your village. So you can send someone a message or create a group to contact privately. That's also how your sharing library works. You know, you can click on your own stuff and skills. So I've got one here that's new economy books that have inspired bHive. So the way that you book other people's things is with a direct message. So you just get in touch with them and have a conversation and say, oh, I'd love to borrow some of those books. And, okay, come around on Thursday and grab it. That's fine. So that's the idea with villages. It starts with you as a human being and a neighbour. You subscribe to villages, but then everything that happens on villages is gifting. So you're basically building community. Now, our goal then is around villages, you build cooperative enterprise. So we're at the moment doing some final fundraising to set up the Bendigo car sharing cooperative. And what we want is people to use their identity and reputation that they created in villages to log in and sign into the car sharing cooperative. And that identity and reputation will come back to them in villages, and then we'll go out to food co-ops, energy co-ops, logistics co-ops, skill sharing cooperatives, worker cooperatives, so that you have one identity and one reputation that you then use as the currency of this whole network. So you can see there why we're quite interested in Holochain coming on board, because you know that'll all be so simple to do once we once we get to that point. So villages is we're launching it in Bendigo on the 10th of November. And the plan is to allow local places anywhere in Australia, local people anywhere in Australia to subscribe to the platform from February. And what we're going to do with that income is split it in 3 ways. So, when people elsewhere around Australia sign up to the platform, that's going to create some income to improve the tech, and it's also going to create some income to look at expanding globally and nationally. and it's also going to create income. We're actually going to pay local people in each local place to set up their own bHive cooperative that's a replica of ours. So when they subscribe, the more people that subscribe in a local place, the more money there is to give back to that local place to then set up the governance arrangements so that they own and control their own local bHive. Then we'll have a network of bHive cooperatives who can work together, share IP and share ideas, and create this future economy that we want. It also has, from a scale point of view, like we set up car sharing in Bendigo, there might be another local place that sets up, the food co-op and the tech for the food co-op. And there might be another place that sets up the tech for an energy cooperative. And then the idea is that each local bHive cooperative can just pick up that tech then and then set it up locally in their place. So all of the organisations will be local, at the local scale, but the tech will be at the global scale. So that's the plan with villages, and we're also obviously we're looking at that local to national to how can we allow people in other local places around the world to also replicate the model and set up their own cooperative. So we've been talking to places around the world who are trying to find similar solutions to what we're creating, which is pretty exciting. But yeah, we're also running I think I was saying to you the other day, we're running a founding patrons campaign too. So if there's someone out there who is really keen to see this model fly, then you can go to bHive.coop and you can become a founding patron of the bHive cooperative, and we will put your name in lights forever. There's already a list on our website of the people who've given us money, and it's, yeah, they're brilliant. It's because they've donated their money, which has enabled us to get a start. So if people want to join them, then we'd love them to head to bHive.coop and become a founding patron. And if there's people that would like to work with us on that, as we grow from the testing we're doing in Bendigo to opening up nationally, to helping other places set up their own bHive cooperatives, to then helping that expand into other countries. If there's people that'd love to work with us on that, we'd love to hear from them too. We'll need the tech though, David.
It's close.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully that was a nice little snapshot. Nothing on the platform broke while I was clicking on it, so that was good.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, thanks so much, Ian. It was great. And what I think we could do is somewhere around, maybe we can just have you come back around the launch, and so as you're launching, we can also just go back into the platform, see how it's working, and then again, or just a reminder across the ecosystem of what's happening, and maybe some people get involved then. And it sounds very exciting. I know these things take a long time to build. It's exactly like the underlying infrastructure, isn't it? These things take a long time to build, the ideas to seed, people to get involved. So yeah, looking forward to the tech being ready, and looking forward to seeing how this evolves as well, and all the people who get on board, and the change that'll come as a consequence.
Yeah, he is hoping. We hope. It's been interesting actually the last 6 months, because we were talking about when we started, we were talking about this idea of collaborative consumption and the sharing economy and the access economy, but we have had so many phone calls in the last 6 months from people wanting to do neighbourhood mutual aid, because we've had COVID and people have been stuck at home, and they've been wanting to look after neighbours. And in Australia, volunteerism has really struggled, because people are not allowed to turn up to the nursing home or the hospital or whatever they were doing to volunteer anymore. But they want to connect with neighbours, and it's like, I know there's a single dad up the street with 2 kids. We'd love to organise a cooking roster. How do we do this when we can't get together face to face? It's like, Mary, the elderly lady around the corner, she's partially blind and she can't do the shopping and she's too scared to. Can we organise a shopping roster to go and help that person? Can we, so we've been saying to people, oh, please just hang on, because, there are global, shareholder-owned platforms that can do that job, but we've got something coming that can really do that job, and also look after the, that local value creation that we want. So we're actually changing a lot of our focus to say, this is actually about neighbourhood mutual aid, and it's about belonging, and it's a way, hopefully we're creating a platform that will connect people face to face, and and build those real human relationships that we need, that real community that we need around us. There was an amazing bit of research done in Australia about 15 years ago that said, if you have deep links in your local community, it adds 10 years to your lifespan, and it's better for your health than giving up smoking, alcohol and fat. We are supposed to be together, and in the last 6 months we've been ripped apart from each other because of this pandemic, which has been horrible. And we've got a lot of people who now understand the value of neighbours like they might not have a year ago, because they're the people they've been able to connect with over the last 6 months to a year. So hopefully there's people that can get on and use villages for all of those sort of things as well. So yeah, there's big consumption goals, but the social goals are pretty big as well, pretty important.
Inspiring. Well, Ian, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm looking forward to looking forward to seeing how it unfolds. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Had Ian McBurney from bHive. Thank you so much, Ian.
That's all right. And David, a new day has dawned behind us while we've been speaking.
I know.
The sun's up. There's a whole new world out there. It's a brand new day.
It's a brand new day. Well, you enjoy your evening. I'll enjoy my morning. And best of luck for the launch. And look forward to hearing how it all goes.
Thanks heaps. And yeah, we're still crossing our fingers and very excited about the brilliant work that you guys are doing too, and can't wait to get on board.